Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you listen. It's been a while. I haven't done a podcast episode in I think about 9 months, maybe longer, I'm not sure. But a lot has happened in those 9 months. Since then, I have transitioned financial planning firms to another fee-only investment advisory firm, actually based out of Philly, and was founded by a member of the church up there who's an elder. And it's been a really good move, and I was glad to do it. So I still run my full-scale retirement planning practice out of that new firm. Something else that has changed is that we have moved out of Northwest Arkansas down to my hometown where my parents live. Because we are expecting another baby next month. And so I'm very excited to have that additional grandparent support before baby number 2 arrives. But those really aren't the reasons why I stopped recording these podcasts. One was time, but mostly it was just because I felt like what the podcast had become was just information you could probably grab in lots of places. You can get good retirement information, tax information, income rules. You can get that anywhere. And well, not anywhere, but there's some people who do it very well, and they've been doing it for a long time. And so if you're still interested in things like that, we'll cover them periodically. But I would also just point you to people like Roger Whitney or Andy Panko, Taylor Schulte. They're covering all these things, and they're doing it very well. So they're on all the podcast providers, and I would point you to them. And I'd like to make this more of things that you might not hear in other places. And it still might be financial, but a big part of what I do is based on the belief that the retirement plans for a Christian look materially different than the retirement plans of a non-Christian from a secular perspective. And most all financial advice is given from a secular perspective. So I hope to bring different perspectives on that front as well as I start these. You'll also notice that there was no intro music, and my audio is probably not as good because I'm not going to do any more editing. I just want to record these from where I am and be able to put these out more frequently with less effort. So if you missed the intro music, I am very sorry. I kind of do too. But today I wanted to start this new drove of episodes. I want to call this one Silly Things I Have Done with Money. Because I think we've all done things with money that we are not proud of, or that we just recognize were not optimal. And I actually like to keep a running tally of these things in a Word document that I'd like to share with you today. So here we go with silly things I have done with money. Excuse me. Okay, first off, I paid $80 for a triathlon that I never went to. I never trained for it, so I never went. Multiple times in my life, I have forgotten to pay toll bills until after the due date. In one instance, the late fees were more than the toll itself. I once paid $100 to join the Chamber of Commerce, and then I never interacted with anybody in the Chamber of Commerce. I paid $50 for a GoPro subscription that I forgot existed, never used, and just forgot to cancel. I have bought countless items that I completely forgot that I had or turned out not to ever need, only to bring them back to Goodwill with the tags still on years later. I overpaid $1,500 in taxes because I did not know what an HSA was or how it worked. I once bought a water bottle off of Amazon that I thought was really cool that combined the bottle and the pill case all in one place for $9 on Amazon. I kept the pill case because it's a pill case, but the bottle was absolutely terrible and it went in the trash. 2 times last year, my water bill was very high, only to discover that the water hose was running slightly outside. Not once, but twice. Also last year, We paid the entire year of dental insurance to go to the dentist a total of 0 times. A couple years ago, I paid $200 for Caitlin, my wife, to have an epidural when she totally could have had the baby without one. All right, that one was a joke. That was money well spent. I paid $99 for an online workout and nutrition plan that I did not use at all from a gentleman named Joey Swole. I bought a 3-bed, 2-bath house without verifying that one of the baths actually worked. I paid $350 for an online course to teach me how to day trade, and then I promptly lost $80,000 day trading. I do not recommend. And then lastly, I have treated money as a tool to rush me towards an early retirement, no matter what the cost. Okay, this last one is kind of, what's the word? It is, I don't know, the basis of my story, I guess, as far as why I do what I do, treating money as a tool to rush me towards a retirement, no matter what I left in my wake. And I guess I'll do story time really quick. You know, if you've ever played the game of life, that's a good example. The game of life is just a board game that gamifies our life, right? You have that education phase at the beginning where you're figuring out what you want to do. And then you have the work phase. And that's most of the game, right? Is most of the board is in the work phase of life. And when does the game end? Well, when you land in retirement. And the winner of the game of life is the person with the most money. So growing up, I really liked school. I just enjoyed school, being in school. I liked learning, but I especially liked the structure that came with school, almost like that game board, to where it's like, okay, I do these classes for 1 year and then I go on to the next class. I do that for 12 years and then high school's over, right? And then even in school or in college, it's the same deal. It might not be year to year, but it's here's your degree plan. And if you take these classes, we will give you this degree. I like that structure. But after I entered the workforce, that structure went away. I didn't have it anymore. Because how long does the work phase take? How long would I be at work? Not to mention, I did not enjoy work, not at all. I did not like sitting at a computer all day, not deciding how I spent my time. I would leave in the morning at 6 or 7, and then I wouldn't even get back until 5 or 6 in the evening, sitting in traffic, and only to wake up and do it all again the next day. Only go to bed, I guess, and do it all again the next day. So I was really looking forward to what was coming up next, because thankfully work was not the last phase. I still had that end phase waiting for me, and that is retirement. No more work, no more exchanging my valuable time for a paycheck, but instead doing what I want when I want. So I decided I was going to move on to that phase as fast as possible. So I learned everything about retirement, how to prepare for it, all things investing, all things taxes. And then what do I do once I get there? How do I withdraw my money? And the best way, what if I'm not yet 59 and a half? What about healthcare before I'm 65? When am I going to take Social Security? I really enjoy learning all of it, all the Roth conversions, all the IRMA, all the Social Security taxes, SEPPs, RMDs, QCDs. And the reason I loved it so much was because it gave me hope. Because I ran all the projections, and once again, I had a timeline. I knew how long the work phase would take. And I was very excited because of this new kind of hope that I had. So that hope sort of became my life. And that is when I realized life was a game, money was the score, and retirement was the objective. And when I looked at the world around me, that seemed pretty congruent with what I was seeing. Most people seem to be on that same page, that the name of the game was and always had been retirement. But I was finally starting to understand that American dream. And so, because of that, anything that might detract from my mission, like church contribution or Caitlin wanting to go out to eat, that was an immediate threat to my early retirement. And I could not let that happen. By the way, I mentioned those two examples, church and Caitlin, because while I sacrificed everything on the altar of retirement, the things that noticeably suffered the most were my relationship with my wife and my relationship with my Creator. Both at times seemed completely non-existent. But my plan for an early retirement was right on track. So Caitlin and I may have fought about money every week for 2 years, but she would thank me later, right? I was just doing what was best for her, whether she realized it or not. And as for God, well, God is very forgiving, and I could patch things up with him anytime. Retirement was my life. And I was getting pretty good at it, at progressing towards it. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I met a very interesting character in my story that I won't get into today. But this character gave me a book. And this book was called Managing God's Money by Randy Alcorn. If you've read it, you would know it's just a basic biblical commentary of some select financial texts. A very good book. I didn't agree with everything in the book, but how many times do you agree with everything that you read in a book? But it did come to me at a time in my life that it was life-changing. One parable in particular that I want to read right now, if I can open there really quick. It's in Luke 12, and then I'm going to start in verse 16. I guess I should have opened this up before I started recording, but here we are. Okay. And he told them a parable saying, the land of a rich man produced plentifully. And he thought to himself, what shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops. And he said, I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. Okay, and if you were to stop there, which I want to, without reading ahead, we already know that this farmer is about to get reprimanded, right? But just imagine you stop the story here and you only take a look at what I just read so far. The land of a rich man produced plentifully. He thought, what am I going to do? Nowhere to store it. So I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store my grain and my goods. What's the problem with that? What does the farmer want? What is he after? He kind of reveals this in the next verse that I will quickly read. It says, and I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry. I will never forget when I saw Randy Alcorn use these words to describe the objective of this man, of this farmer, when he called it an early retirement. An early retirement. And sort of in an Acts 2:38 fashion, Acts 2:37, I suppose, I was cut to the heart, so to say. And some tears may have been shed as I was reading this book, and my world flipped upside down, or maybe right side up, rather, as I felt like God was saying to me the next verses to the parable. It says, fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Not rich toward God. I had been going to church all my life, so that couldn't make any sense. And yet it was at that moment that I realized I was terrible with money. I didn't understand it at all. I thought I was really good with it. I thought I knew all about it, but that was just not the case. And so The last of my silly things I have done with money is treated money as a tool to rush me towards that early retirement, to that comfort as a tool for my own, comforts and just whims. And that is not at all what money is for. Money. Jesus tells us what money is for. Maybe we'll get into that more specifically one day. But in general, money is a tool to bear fruit. It is a tool to point people towards God. We know that, to change their eternal circumstances to where they can spend eternity with Him. Money is not, absolutely not, for our own comfort, for our own, financial freedom, personal security. But sometimes I think we often live that way. So that is all I have today. Very excited to be doing these podcast episodes again and more frequently, and hopefully with a different perspective than some of the other financial podcasts out there that are very good, but just from a more secular perspective. So looking forward to it, looking forward to next time, and I will see y'all later.